Welcome to the Heli Academy Podcast. My name is G. I'm a CFI from Singapore. Please enjoy the podcast.
All right, welcome everybody. We are back with the Heli Academy Podcast. It's been a while since we've done a podcast and super excited to get back on track with doing these podcasts. I actually have Jamie here with me.
Hello. I recently took over from Eric as Chief. And so one of the things I'm really keen on doing is carrying on these podcasts with Jared. I think they're a super valuable tool for anyone who listens. It's a good opportunity to get the knowledge from Jared and also to keep up to date with everything that's happening at Hillsborough. So I'm super happy to be given this opportunity to kind of jump into this.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, I think it's probably good for us to talk about a little bit what this podcast is to start out with. I think that's really important. You know, this podcast is not really designed to be the specialist for the industry. This podcast is really designed to be for our students here at the school, to help them be better students, help set them up for the future, create a place for them to get their information so that when they move on, you know, they can listen to it or whatever. But, you know, hey, if you're listening right now and you are not going to Hillsborough Heli Academy, you're welcome to listen. Don't go away. But you know, you'll notice that a lot of the things that we talk about, we're going to be talking about a lot of the things that are happening here at the school. And if you're interested in coming to the school, this is a great place for you to be to learn a little bit about us and learn a little bit about the school and get a little head start on how to be a successful student and a successful pilot in the industry.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And we've had a couple of students who have joined, who started listening to the podcast. And it's funny that
cool.
when you hear the comments from them, that the first 2 or 3 ground lessons, which are about how to be a pilot, how to be the personality, how to learn, and they kind of have that leg up from listening to the podcast already. And so I think it really is a useful tool that people can keep using.
That's great. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about struggles.
Yes, everyone has these struggles. It's a natural part of life, right? That everyone struggles at something. And one day you can be feeling like you're on top of the world and everything's super successful. And then the next day you have a pitfall and who knows why, right? And so struggles during training are a big thing. When you get into your CFI training, that's a big part of the training, is how can you help a student through a time when they're struggling and help them kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so Jared and I are going to talk today a bit about struggles that maybe we've had and how we got through them, but also just kind of the general theory of struggles and how you can grow from those struggles.
Yeah, I love it. You know, it's interesting. A lot of times people get discouraged, especially in helicopter training, because it's new. Like there's nothing really like it, right? You can't replicate it anywhere else. And so, especially in the very beginning, when you start learning how to hover or you get out there and you're just trying to maneuver the aircraft, it feels like it's never going to happen. And it can be really discouraging. And I always try to tell people, you know, just stick it out, because those struggles are what's going to actually help you in the future, right? If you don't have struggles, you're not going to grow. You're not going to become more resilient. You're not going to become stronger. You're not going to become better at, you know, dealing with issues. If everything was, you know, hunky dory all the time, you know, and something bad happened, you wouldn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and you have to have negatives to have positives. So everything's a balance. When I talk to the CFIs or new CFIs, or when I just have CFI meetings, one of the big things that I always talk about is that, yes, your trajectory from day one to your day of retirement should be, if you zoom out far enough, should just be a constant upward line. But if you look at that line very closely, it is going to be ups and downs constantly.
Yeah.
And as long as you can see the constant trajectory upwards, then that's okay. And I think it's a really important thing to talk about. One of the big things I think personally is to get rid of one of the hazardous attitudes around this, right? Macho-ness or invulnerability.
Yeah.
If you are having a day where you're struggling, whether it's your first week here and you can't hover, or whether you're 1,000 hours and suddenly slope landings aren't working for you, talk to people about it, because other people would have had that same struggle. That's definitely something that CFIs will deal with throughout their CFI tenure. as students, you look up to your CFI as this infallible person who it does everything perfect the first time. But behind the scenes, that's not the case. And for those of you in CFI class right now, you'll be laughing about that because you go straight from your commercial check ride where you're super nervous about doing that 180 to suddenly in the left seat and you're throwing these 180s around for fun.
Yep.
So it's I think this growth is a big thing for me personally, and how we can grow from that. I'm never going to tell anyone off because they come into my office and say that normal pattern I did last lesson was atrocious. It's if they try and hide that, that's the problem. And talking about these things is the really important thing to grow.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, one of the things that's really important, I always try to tell students is come into my office, tell me about it. Yeah. Tell me about that first day of trying to hover. Tell me about that first day of, trying to do an auto rotation. Because, I think when we talk about those things, it actually, it makes it a little easier. And like you said, everyone's gone through it.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's had the same struggles. Everyone's, dealt with the same things. And sometimes I think that as we're going through the training, we're thinking like we're the only ones that's ever dealt with it.
Yeah.
And it's just simply not the case. We all are we've all dealt with it. We've all dealt with those struggles. I mean, for me, I had plenty of struggles myself. One of the things that I struggled with actually was studying by myself. Mm. For me, that was super hard. Now it's a little bit different than kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about, going out and trying a maneuver, getting discouraged. But for me, I would get really discouraged trying to study on my own, and I wouldn't retain the information. And so I actually needed to sit down with my instructor and work through some of the concepts, some, aerodynamics and weather and some of those things, because I struggled with it. And, did it end up costing me a little bit more money to sit with my instructor and do those things? Yeah. But for me, that's what really helped me push through at the end, because, for me, just, sitting at home, trying to dive into the books was difficult for me in the beginning, for private license specifically. So, I think we all struggle with things.
Yeah. And I think it's good that you bring up ground. I think it's very easy in the flight training school to get captured with the flight part of it, but ground is just as important as the flight. And on these warm summer days, just a date when we're filming or when we're recording this, it's easy to forget that ground exists. Yeah. And I think that's an area where people can struggle with more motivation wise. And I think it is an important thing that you talk about ground as well. These group ground sessions can help. The sitting down with your instructor can help. It's different training aids. So, and again, going back to CFI class, that's a big thing that you relate to, is the different ways of teaching different people.
Yeah.
If you sit down and just show me facts and figures, for me personally, I'm never going to learn anything. But for someone else, that's what they need to learn. And if you sit down and go through a load of whiteboard drawings with me, that's going to stick with me forever.
Yeah.
And so don't be frightened to tell your instructor, you know what, that kind of teaching isn't really working for me. Can we switch it up? And
yeah.
Or if maybe you walk past another briefing room and you'll see someone else teaching something in a different way, and that'll be that click moment. Don't be frightened to discuss that with your instructor. No one's going to be offended by that, because everyone learns in a different way. I mean, my personal struggles, everyone has the same standard things, right? Hovering and all that kind of stuff. I started training a long time ago, so I can't remember those first days really very detailed. But I think to relate it back to kind of current things, one thing that one of my instructors said is that just because you have your CFI license or certificate in hand does not mean those struggles end. And you need to be working on something in ground and in flight every single week.
Yeah,
that's coming back to that point is that at the end of every Friday, which is the end of my work week, I think, what did I work on this week and what am I super happy with? And what am I going to work on next week? And so, for example, this week I wanted to work on my auto rotations. So I did a few flights and they are back up to what I would class as a good standard.
There you go. That's good.
My 44 pickups more recently have been atrocious for my standards. So next I'm going to be working on 44 pickups and set downs. And it's a constant cycle of things you're struggling with and things that you want to improve. And I think as long as you are constantly improving something and dealing with these struggles, then you're going to have a good trajectory. There's no point getting drummed down and beaten by these struggles because everyone goes through them.
Yeah, that's good. I really like that. One of our last chief instructor, he always said, trust the process. And I always really love that because, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing when you're in it. Like, the ups and the downs and the struggles and the good times and the order of maneuvers and your instructor is looking at it and looking at your training holistically and saying, okay, like what does this student need? And sometimes, it's kind of easy to get lost in the weeds there. And it's just important. Just trust the process because it'll all work out. Like, getting to the end, you'll get there. But just keep moving, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another important point with that trusting the process is to not compare yourself with others.
Oh, yeah.
That is the biggest thing. And it's an area that talking about struggle, that's an area I struggled with at the beginning. If you are in, say, an art class, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be looking around the room and comparing everyone else's art. And so that will give you a good idea of if you're top of the class or bottom of the class. And that is not necessarily a good learning environment for that class. In flight training, you're one-on-one with your instructor, or at least here, you're one-on-one with your instructor. And so again, trust the process. The instructor can see where your training's going. If you compare yourself to other people, that's where you really, really fall down. If someone you started with is hovering 2 weeks before you or is doing their solo a week before you, that doesn't mean you're a bad pilot. It doesn't mean anything against you at all. It just means that person's journey is different. At the end of the day, you're all going to come out of here with a private pilot license or a CFI license, whichever program you're in. You're going to come out of here with that license. And so if it takes you a different journey to get there, that's fine. The instructors will walk through that with you.
And everybody works at different paces, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people really just take off like a rocket ship right out of the gate. And other people, might take a little bit. Maybe their hovering is a little bit slower, but then they're going to take off later in their training. And I think, generally speaking, here at the school, everybody ends up at the same place at the same time. But if you, like you said, if you're comparing yourself to other people, sometimes you can get discouraged, and discouragement isn't going to actually help you. Like it's just going to make you take a step backwards. Pushing through some of those struggles, that's what's going to make you better. That's what's going to help you succeed in the long run.
Yeah, and for sure. And we see it all the time here. We really do see it all the time that somebody will come into my office or Jared's office and be upset that they were their best friend is already, that they made through training is already almost finished and they're a couple of lessons away. We just have to talk through those things. It's fine. You are going to be fine. And sometimes that person who struggled a little bit more in the beginning turns out to be a better pilot overall, or a better instructor at least. Because if you go through the program with no failures, that you can still be a great instructor. Don't get me wrong, but if you've gone through and you've had a couple of setbacks, then when you have that student sitting in front of you and you can see them going through that setback, it makes you much more relatable to that person. And also it means you can talk through these problems with them and help them grow from it. And growth is what this is all about. Personal growth, ability to fly growth, knowledge growth. The school, I truly believe that the flight training, when you want to become a pilot, that's not like another job where you go home and close the door and it's all done. It's a big part of your personal life as well. And so the school enables you, or any flight training school enables you to grow not only in your knowledge, but it enables you to grow personally. And so you have to let that growth happen. And growth can only happen from struggles. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd ever want an instructor that never struggled with anything.
No, definitely not. No, that person should not exist.
But if they could exist, I don't know if I'd want them as my instructor because they wouldn't understand what I'm going through. And so I think that's the other thing that we don't realize is that even through our own struggles, we are learning how to help those people behind us. And, here in this industry, that's what it's all about, right? It's about being in the community. It's about helping the next person, not only in our environment, not only with, instructor-student kind of environment, which is, exactly where we're at, but also in the industry. Look at all the articles, the people writing articles about lessons learned. That's how our industry gets better. And so, if you had this fictitious person that had never struggled with anything, they're not going to be any help to you, right? We're not going to be able to learn from each other. We're not going to be able to be better as an industry. So, when you think about that, as you're going through it, you're struggling with it, you're like, oh, okay. When I get on the other side, I'm going to be able to help somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
I think that's a positive way of looking at it. And I think that is important.
Yeah. So let's talk about plateaus. I think, so we talk about struggles, and sometimes that's really, really direct, right? We get back from a flight and we're like, dang it, like that was terrible. It didn't feel good. I made some bad choices. I didn't hit my spot in the auto rotation, whatever it is, right? Those seem really, really direct. But sometimes the one that kind of evades us a little bit is this plateau. You're doing really well, and then all of a sudden just things don't seem to be progressing the same way they have been. And sometimes it's hard for us to notice that. What kind of things do you think that we could do to, kind of push past that or recognize it in the moment?
And before we get into the pushing past it or fixing it, I think it's an important thing to point out that much like struggles, plateaus are natural and there's no one to blame.
Yeah.
I think it's super easy for a student to sit there after having the third lesson where they don't feel that they've grown, and then they start blaming themselves for it. Yeah. And I think that can be unhealthy, right? A plateau is a natural part of growth. There are a ton of methods to get through plateaus. I think my personal one that I have found works with my students and worked for me personally is changing up the scenery. If you are going out there and you're doing a maneuver and you're just not happy with the growth of it, do a different maneuver. The way our course is set up, the way the training program is set up in such a way that you can switch things around. You can go out there and you can do something different. If you're going out there and you can't do slope landings on the side of the taxiway here, go out and do some off airports where you get thrown into a natural slope and you won't even be thinking about the slope because you'll be thinking how cool the off airport is.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's a perfect example.
Yeah, changing something. I think that's the one thing that we think, I'm stuck on this. I just need to keep trying.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the exact opposite of what you need to do. Sometimes you need to get out, go do something else, and then come back to it. And, so much of what we do in the helicopter is connected, our maneuvers, the way we do maneuvers, the way we, conduct, certain actions in the helicopter, it's connected. And so even though maybe, slope landings are what you're struggling with, like you said, maybe doing something else where you're working on precision flying or even, getting out there and doing an instrument flight where you're staring at those instruments and, just making really fine-tuned adjustments on the collective and cyclic. Sometimes that could, come back and then all of a sudden it just, your fine-tuned motor skills are better and you can get in there and do that slope landing and, you've released some of the stress and the struggle with like being stuck, so yeah, plateaus happen. I think that's part of training as well.
It's super coincidental that you bring up instrument training because that was going to be my next example. I've heard it, and I'm sure you've heard it 100 times as well, and I've heard it a ton of times already, that you have students who have finished private and they're feeling on this high, and then the way our course is set up is you get thrown straight into the next thing. You don't get a chance to celebrate, you're straight back into learning. And they go in and they do the first few instrument lessons, and then they come to me and they say they just don't feel like they're progressing. And that can obviously start affecting them very negatively. And so I just say, go out and do a commercial flight. Remember that you can fly a helicopter. Don't just look at these instruments, go out there and break the plateau as we've just been speaking about. And they come back from that commercial flight and then immediately instrument starts working. Doing something different, getting yourself out of that environment, and just changing your mindset about it is the biggest way of breaking through plateaus, I think, personally.
I love it. So, couple minutes left here in this podcast. If you were to just give a student one piece of advice for, if you're just trying to wrap up this whole podcast into one piece of advice in regards to struggling or being stuck on something, what would you say?
Lose the ego.
That's good.
Don't worry. No one's going to judge you. No one is going to think negatively of you if you get stuck in these things. We are all here. We've all been through it. Talk. That's all I can really say about it.
Yeah. And for me, I think it would be, be in your community. This community, the helicopter community, this school is pretty tight knit. And talk about it, man. Yeah. Just like you said, talk about it. Be with other people, talk with other students that are struggling with it, talk about students that are on the other side of what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Talk with your instructor about it. Be open and honest with your instructor. Tell them like, I'm struggling with this because, admitting it is, sometimes half the battle. And so just be open, honest, and don't try to do it by yourself.
Yeah. That we are one-on-one instructors with students for a reason. Doing it by yourself is not the way this program works. No one can be a lone wolf in this, for sure.
No, awesome. And lastly, I just want to say, have fun. I think that's important. Helicopter flying is a kick in the pants, and don't get so bogged down in the training that you forget it's enjoyable. It's that's why we're all here. We love it. We want to be here. We want to have fun. And so just enjoy it.
Yep. I mean, that's how whenever I finish giving someone a high-risk sign-off, assuming I've approved the high-risk sign-off, that's the two things I always say. Make good decisions, and most importantly, have fun.